Welcome to our lesson for today about understanding cultural differences. It's actually lesson 3 of our course on international studies in business. As an overview, in the next 2 weeks that we will delve into the intricate cultural dimensions of international business. Today's lesson focuses on understanding cultural differences and their profound impact on global business operations. As we know, cultivating cultural competence is essential for navigating diverse cultural landscapes and fostering successful cross-cultural collaborations. So here are some of the key concepts that we will touch upon. One, definition of culture, cultural dimensions, such as individualism versus collectivism, high versus low context, power distance, uncertainty avoidance, and masculinity versus femininity. Cultural intelligence, strategies for cross-cultural communications and adaptation. Today, we embark on a fascinating exploration into the realm of cultural dimensions in international business. Our focus in this lesson, obviously, is on understanding cultural differences and their profound implications for global business interaction. As we navigate through diverse cultural landscapes, let us delve deeper into the intricacies of cross-cultural competence. To commence our journey, let us first unravel the concept of culture. When we say culture, it encompasses a complex web of beliefs, values, customs, traditions, and behavioral norms shared by a particular group of people. It shapes individuals' perceptions, attitudes, and behaviors, influencing how they interpret, how they interact with the world around them. Now let us delve into the various dimensions of culture that influence international business. Take note that these dimensions include: 1. Individualism versus collectivism. Individualistic cultures prioritize personal goals, autonomy, and individual achievement, whereas collectivist cultures emphasize group harmony, interdependence, and loyalty to the community or loyalty to the company. Here is an example of individualism. United States culture often prioritizes personal achievement and autonomy. For instance, the American dream emphasizes individual success and the pursuit of one's goals regardless of societal expectations or constraints. Here, on the other hand, is an example of collectivism. In Japan, there is a strong emphasis on group harmony and loyalty to the community or to the company. This is exemplified in concepts like wa or harmony and giri or duty, which underscore the importance of maintaining social cohesion and fulfilling one's obligations to the group. Another dimension is high versus low context. When we say high context cultures, they rely heavily on implicit communication cues such as body language and context to convey meaning, whereas low context cultures favor explicit verbal communication and rely less on contextual cues. Here is an example of high context example. In China, communication often relies heavily on implicit cues and context. For instance, silence or indirect gestures may convey more meaning than explicit verbal statements in certain situations, as individuals are expected to be attuned to the broader context of the conversation. On the other hand, here is an example of low context culture. Germany is often considered a low context culture, where communication tends to be direct and explicit. Germans typically value clarity and precision in language, preferring detailed explanations and straightforward communication without relying heavily on contextual cues. Another dimension, another cultural dimension is called power distance. When we say power distance, it refers to the extent to which a society accepts hierarchical power structure and inequalities. Cultures with high power distance accept and expect significant inequalities in power and authority, while cultures with low power distance strive for more egalitarian relationships. Here is an example of high power distance culture. In many Middle Eastern countries, there's a significant acceptance of hierarchical power structures. For example, in Saudi Arabia, there's a strong respect for authority figures, and individuals are expected to defer to those in positions of power without questioning their decisions. Here, on the other hand, is an example of low power distance culture. Scandinavian countries like Sweden exhibit low power distance with a preference for more egalitarian relationships. There's less emphasis on formal authority, and decision-making processes often involve collaboration and consensus building among team members. Even in name calling, you call your boss with the first name. So that one is something that is unacceptable or unthinkable in high power distance cultures, including Philippines. We say, yes, we cannot afford to call our boss by his or her first name. Another cultural dimension is what we call uncertainty avoidance. It reflects the extent to which a culture tolerates ambiguity, uncertainty, and risk. Cultures with high uncertainty avoidance seek structure, rules, and predictability, while cultures with low uncertainty avoidance are more comfortable with ambiguity and uncertainty. Here is an example of high uncertainty avoidance. South Korea is an example of a culture with high uncertainty avoidance. This is evident in the emphasis on rigorous education systems and structured career paths, as individuals seek to minimize uncertainty and risk by adhering to established norms and procedures. On the other hand, here is an example of low uncertainty avoidance. In contrast, countries like the Netherlands often display low uncertainty avoidance. Dutch culture values flexibility and adaptability, And there's a willingness to experiment and tolerate ambiguity in various aspects of life, including business and social interactions. Here's another cultural dimension. Masculinity versus femininity. Masculine cultures value assertiveness, competitiveness, and achievement, while feminine cultures prioritize cooperation, nurturance, and quality of life. Here is an example of masculine culture. In many Arab countries, such as Saudi Arabia, masculine traits like assertiveness and competitiveness are highly valued. Gender roles are often distinct, with men typically expected to fulfill roles related to leadership and providing for the family. How about an example of feminine culture? Scandinavian countries like Norway exhibit more feminine cultural values, prioritizing quality of life, gender equality, and cooperation. There's a greater emphasis on work-life balance, and both men and women are encouraged to participate equally in caregiving responsibilities and decision-making processes. Cultural intelligence. In navigating diverse cultural landscapes, developing cultural intelligence is by no means, or we cannot, or no doubt, it is paramount. Cultural intelligence refers to the ability to understand, adapt to, and interact effectively with people from different cultural backgrounds. It encompasses cultural awareness, mindfulness, empathy, and behavioral flexibility, enabling individuals to bridge cultural divides and foster successful cross-cultural interactions. Strategies for cross-cultural communication and adaptation. To thrive in the global marketplace, it is essential to employ effective strategies for cross-cultural communication and adaptation. These strategies include: 1. Active listening. Engaging in active and emphatic listening to understand others' perspectives and sentiments. Example: in a meeting with Japanese colleagues, instead of immediately responding to a suggestion, I pause to reflect and nod, signaling that I am actively listening and considering their viewpoint before offering my input. Another strategy is cultural sensitivity. Being mindful of cultural differences and avoiding ethnocentric biases or stereotypes. Example: while working in a team from India, I refrain from scheduling important discussions during their major festivals, acknowledging and respecting the significance of these cultural events. Number 3, adaptability. Flexibly adjusting one's communication style, behavior, and decision-making approach to suit diverse cultural contexts. Example: when collaborating with a team from Brazil, known for their preference for informal communication styles, I adjust my approach by engaging in more relaxed and friendly interactions rather than strictly formal communication. Number 4, respect and open-mindedness. It means demonstrating respect for cultural differences and maintaining an open-minded attitude towards diverse perspectives. Example, during a discussion with representatives from various countries, I listen attentively to each person's perspective, even if it differs from my own cultural background, thereby demonstrating respect for their viewpoints and remaining open-minded to diverse ways of thinking. Conclusion. As we conclude our exploration for cultural differences in international business, let us reflect on the profound implications of cultural diversity for global commerce. By understanding and embracing cultural differences, we can cultivate mutual respect, trust, and collaboration across borders, fostering inclusive and harmonious business environments in an interconnected world. So, let's have review questions for this lesson for memory retention of the key points and concepts that we have touched upon. 1. What is culture and why it is important in international business? Culture encompasses shared beliefs, values, customs, and behaviors of a group. It is essential in international business as it influences communication, decision making, and business practices. Number 2, identify and explain two cultural dimensions discussed in the lesson. Among the cultural dimensions discussed are the following two: individualism versus collectivism. Individualistic cultures prioritize personal goals, while collectivist cultures emphasize group harmony and interdependence. High versus low context. High context cultures rely on implicit communication cues, whereas low context cultures favor explicit verbal communication. 3. What is cultural intelligence and why is it important in international business? Cultural intelligence, or CQ, is the ability to understand, adapt to, and interact effectively with people from different cultures. It is important in international business as it enables individuals to navigate cultural differences, build relationships, and foster successful cross-cultural collaborations. Number 4, explain the concept of power distance and provide an example of a high power distance culture. Power distance refers to the extent to which a society accepts and legitimizes hierarchical power structures and inequalities. An example of a high power distance culture is Japan, where respect for authority and hierarchical structures is deeply ingrained. Number 5, how can cultural sensitivity be demonstrated in cross-cultural interactions? Cultural sensitivity can be demonstrated by respecting and valuing diverse cultural norms and practices, avoiding stereotypes and being open-minded and receptive to different perspectives. Number 6, why is adaptability important in cross-cultural communication? Adaptability is important in cross-cultural communication because it allows individuals to adjust their communication style, behavior, and decision-making approach to suit diverse cultural contexts, facilitating effective communication and relationship building. 7. Provide an example of how high context communication differs from low context communication. In high context communication, much of the meaning is conveyed through nonverbal cues and context, whereas in low context communication, the message is primarily conveyed through explicit verbal communication. For example, a high-value culture like Japan may rely heavily on nonverbal cues such as facial expressions and gestures to convey meaning, while a low-context culture like the United States may rely more on explicit verbal communication. Number 8. What are some strategies for developing cultural intelligence? Strategies for developing cultural intelligence include engaging in cross-cultural experiences, seeking feedback from individuals from different cultures, learning about different cultural norms and practices, and practicing empathy and perspective taking. Number 9, how can active listening contribute to effective cross-cultural communication? Active listening involves attentive listening to others' perspectives, asking clarifying questions, and demonstrating empathy. In cross-cultural communication, active listening helps individuals understand cultural nuances and bridge communication gaps, fostering mutual understanding and respect. Number 10, why is continuous learning important for cultural competence in international business? Continuous learning allows individuals to stay updated on evolving cultural norms and practices, deepen their understanding of different cultures, and adapt their communication and behavior accordingly. In the dynamic and interconnected world of international business, continuous learning is essential for fostering active cross-cultural interactions and building successful relationships. I hope these questions serve as a sort of review for the lesson that we have just finished. I now invite you to share your insights, reflections, and questions on the concepts of cultural dimensions and cultural intelligence we have discussed today. Let us engage in a spirited dialogue, enriching our understanding of the complexities of cross-cultural interactions in international business. So thank you for your attentive participation And I look forward to our fruitful discussion in our online platform. Next meeting, we will proceed to lesson 4 about cross-cultural communication strategies. Thank you and see you in the next lesson.